What's going on, everybody? It's 8 p.m. on the East Coast. I mean, it's Tuesday night. That means it's time for Proper Royals Live. I was asking myself earlier today, like that's usually like my greeting, and I was like, I think people know where they're at, but maybe not. Maybe you're watching on the replay. Maybe you stumbled on it. Welcome if you did. I'm glad to have you. This channel, this show is all about me and my family's journey to becoming full-time ball python breeders, and we're pretty transparent here. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about this lately, and I was just talking to Will about it a little bit. It never occurred to me that this would be like an interview show. You can ask anybody that's ever come on my show. I've never, not once, done. Here's 20 questions. Okay, next question. Here's what we talk about. And like, I always want, and I never really like verbalized this. I don't know. I think I need to start doing it. And I'll talk a little bit about why all these thoughts came in my head. But I've always seen this show as like, all right, I want to hang out with sort of like-minded people, interesting people, and we're going to film ourselves figuring out how we're going to take over the world, you know? And I mean that in a positive way, in an ethical way, in a moral way, and all of that. So that came up because it, you know, I was watching Billy's back doing podcasts on Monday night, and he made this big point. And we all love Billy. Billy's totally cool. No beef with Billy. No issue, whatever. You know, he doesn't want to be an interview podcast. And I was like, yeah, me either. And then I was like, I wonder if people think that's what I want to be. And it's not. And I talked some with, I had Jessica on from the Hold Back Rack podcast. And I'm not going to share this conversation specifics, but one of the topics came up that, you know, guests are really challenging. You don't know. We've all seen it lately. We could all probably name the same 2 or 3 incidents, but where you got to have a trust in your guest, and it's hard. And especially when you build a brand, like I've worked years at building this brand. The last thing I need is somebody to come on here and just like destroy it. So it's this fine balance, but I had just such this curiosity of people. And tonight's a great example of that. I got Will and Audra from Flawless Exotic Creations, as well as Flawless Crested Geckos will be on tonight. And tonight's theme is kind of diversifying revenue streams and growing. So I wouldn't say to diversify revenue streams just for the sake of it, but at some point it seems to be a really viable path. I know a lot of breeders that, you know, they breed snakes, but then they sell dry goods or they sell cocoa, or let's talk about the big guys. They all do, you know, they got Patreon, they got incubators, they got a cocoa brand of their own. They got a software system to buy. They got, I don't know. I don't think Ozzy's written a book yet, but I could see Ozzy writing a book like, you know, Kiyosaki did or whatever. So anyhow, I want to talk about that. And I was joking with Will before the show. Will just breaks the mold. He's just, and I say Will, I think Audra was a big part of it as well. It just happened to be that it was Will that I was talking to. But they just broke the mold. I think I said when I had them on the show last time, like, look, guys, with all due respect, this is crazy town, what you're doing. And it's amazing and it's beautiful, crazy. Like, I love it. I want to follow along, but I don't know if I can recommend this. So it's really intriguing. And of course they've succeeded. They've done great. It's been 4, 5, maybe 6 months, 5 months. Anyhow, you know what? I think it was 6 months. Anyway, it's been quite a while. I want to catch up with them on where they are at, or where they were and where they're at now. So stick around. Will and Audra coming up from Flawless Exotic Creations. Let me see. I got a couple updates to get through. Had a great time. I went down to Sanford, Florida, about an hour and a half, 2 hours from here. Got to go hang out with Jesse Music at Musical Pythons and check out his facility, check out some really cool animals, got some good content. I will have a video coming out of that visit, but it'll probably be a couple weeks. I've got an interview with Robin Markland that's coming out first, and then I've got to edit down his video. So it'll be a little bit, but it'll be a long format YouTube video of there. So it was really cool. Got to hang out with Jesse. On the way, delivered some snakes down to Palm Coast. Thank you very much, Lenny. I think he goes by Leadfoot on Morph Market. So Lenny, thanks so much. Pleasure doing business with you. And I hope to do more next weekend. I'm going to go hang out with Shannon down at Green Dragon Brokers is the name of his company. It is an LLC. And speaking of cool snakes, man, that guy has been buying the farm. He could be close in the running for what he's bought and invested in, right up there with Will and Audra. So actually, we'll talk about some of that. But I'll go down and see Shannon. And then on the way back, I'm going to stop in again in Palm Coast and go see Ryan at Biological Canvas. Ryan has one of the biggest dreamsicle projects that I know of going on. I mean, I know a lot of guys have some dreamsicle stuff that they're working, but Ryan, I think that's his primary project. So that's going to be cool. We're going to go down and do some ultrasounding with him and just build relationships in the community. So it's really cool. I want to give a shout out to Robbie Jensen at RGen Reptiles. Robbie's out of Greenville, which is right up the road from Will and Audra there in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Greenville, I think they call it the upcountry, or the upstate, not the upcountry, the upstate, right before you get to the North Carolina border. There's like Greenville, Spartanburg, Greer, all that in that area there. That's really great. Robbie's right there. Robbie, I'm not going to get into it, but Robbie and I did some business this week. What a fantastic guy that I could recommend that you check out his morph market. Again, it's RGen Reptiles is the name of his handle. Robbie Jensen in Greenville. Robbie, thank you, man. Stuff happens, huh? We did good business though, and I absolutely recommend buying from him. Certainly a trusted breeder. I would recommend. Go check him out. Two of my favorite people here, at least in the local community, don't you like when somebody qualifies that? They're like, mostly my favorite people. No, these are excellent people. Alan from Creme de la Clutch and Keys from Keys Constrictors. Keys has his own show. That's Terrence Keys. He's got his own show on Wednesday nights and Friday. They do Hair Down Fridays. Tomorrow night, Alan will be on his show 8 or 9 o'clock. Just go on YouTube, follow Keys Constrictors. You're going to take care of it. You're going to find it. Both of those guys are great, completely different personalities from myself. Like if you're like, Adam's show is okay. And you might love that show. It's completely different, man. Totally different. Full of energy, full of fun. Really, really fantastic. Check those guys out. Really nothing to do with snakes, but business has a lot to do with, and just staying curious and amazing resources on the internet. Did you know the Stanford Graduate School of Business posts class lectures? You could go get the same class, the same education if you apply yourself, as you know, you're not going to take the tests and get graded and get the feedback. So you can't get quite the same as, like, you can't go get an MBA on YouTube. But you can watch all the Stanford School of Business lectures and discussions that you want. It's really fantastic. Stanford Graduate School of Business. If you ever burn out on podcasts like this, wait till this one's done, then you could go check that out and really dive into some academia, some highbrow, high cotton stuff. I watched an episode on freedom of speech, and I'm done with my speeches. I'm done with the issues. I just want to have fun tonight and talk business. But there was a great concept that came in that lecture and that discussion. And it's an idea of freedom of speech versus freedom of reach, especially in a world of social media and, frankly, consequences. So you can have freedom of speech. You don't have the freedom of reach. The marketplace, as well as the platform owners, are going to moderate that. So food for thought, freedom of speech versus freedom of reach. There you go. Who we got in the chat tonight? You guys know I'm terrible about the chat. I saw Chakra Scales earlier. I don't know if y'all have been on this in the audience before. I see you on Instagram a lot. And I don't know if it's recent or not. I saw your wedding photo with your Pied ball pythons today. If you just got married, congratulations. If, that's even remotely recent, congratulations. Cool channel, Chakra Scales. Go check them out. Hey, Snakes from the Memories is in tonight. They will be I'm one guy. They will be my Valentine's Day guest next week on the show, right? Same place, same time, just next week. Snakes from the Memories. That's Jeremy and Holly. They're going to come hang out. Gershon, what's going on, man? How are you tonight? You've done so much for the community. Thank you so much, Gershon. Seriously. Dale, you're in the house, man. Cheers, brother. You know what? I gotta email you. I might try and dive bomb your scene on the 25th, Saturday. If you want a hand, I'll come hang out. Or if you'll just put up with me, I'll come hang out. Anyhow, I'll get in touch with you. I hope you're well, Dale. Who else is in here? Byron. I gotta say hey to Byron. Byron at Sweet Serpents Tampa. You'll see his logo in just 1 second. Great dude, great guy to do business with. One of these guys that maybe would have a legitimate reason to complain about life or what's going on and just never does. I literally tried to hire him this week for his area of expertise. Like I needed help and he wouldn't let me hire him. He still helped me. So there you go. You do that kind of thing, you get your logo up on the show. Go check out Brian at Sweet Serpents Tampa. And he's been on my show before if you really want to get bored. Or if you get bored and want to check out an episode, it was a great episode. He vends. I've seen him at a lot of shows. Great guy. All right. Bold Coast Exotics, welcome back 2 weeks in a row. Like you come a third time, like you're hooked. You're in. I hope all's well up in Maine. I hope everything is cool. Bomb City Balls. Kenny, what's up? All right. Oh, hey, Lauren, how are you? It's nice to see you tonight. Welcome back. I hope all's well in Colorado too. All right. Enough of the shout outs. I always say that you guys come here for the content, not to get yelled at with what your name is. Look, so this week, this show came together in two very, very different ways and two almost kind of negative ways. And we're going to turn them both into a killer positive because we're going to have a good time tonight. I promise you that. One being, Audra and Will reached out to me after the past couple of weeks, and I'm not going to share those private conversations, but I appreciate it. They were very supportive, and it was a cool discussion to have. And I know I'm talking in code, but like I say, I really don't care to revisit those issues. I think that I think they're behind us. What lies ahead is what we should look forward to. And I think we should let our actions and our who we are show and shine through and demonstrate our beliefs and our, just who we are. The other part of it had nothing to do with them, but I was talking with somebody in the industry, and I'm not going to name their names because they were kind of downtrodden and beat up feeling by this. They kind of pivoted. They were on one path business-wise, and like I say, they kind of pivoted, and it was amazing. It was incredible. I just sent a note going, "Hey, how's it going? How are things? What are you seeing out there?" And we got talking money, and since I haven't said who it is or what the topic is, I'm just going to share. They figured out how to make an extra $4,200 in January. And what they did, they cracked the code essentially. And they tapped into something that is just out there for the taking. It was fantastic. Nailed it. Absolutely crushed it. And I told them this. And they were like, man, you're the first person that's been congratulatory and happy for me. Everybody else said it was a dumb idea. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have changed my direction. I shouldn't have anything. And it dawned on me, like, who in the world can say what's good or bad for another person when you're not in their shoes? And I don't even mean like finding out contextually. I mean, like literally, this guy has a strength and a resource and a sort of superpower for one specific area. Will and Audra have their own superpowers. There's going to be things tonight that I go, that's absolutely bonkers. And they're going to go, yeah, for you, but not for us. And there's things like that for me that I'm going to go, yeah, it doesn't work for other people, but it works for me because I'm that guy, or I figured this part out, or I cracked that code. And so between our talk behind the scenes and between here and this other story, I said, you know what? Let's get Will and Audra on here. This will be a great show tonight because their entrepreneurial spirit is just overflowing. You're going to feel it here in just a second. So it's really great. Help me welcome back for the second time to the Proper Royal stage, Will and Audra from Spartanburg, South Carolina, Flawless Exotic Creations. Here we are.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm all like antsy. You know, when you're tired but excited, you know, it's almost like it's not Christmas night or anything. I'm not waiting for Santa Claus to show up or anything, but it's a little bit of that like giddy excitement. I'm just beat. Like life is great though. I'm excited and beat because of just how great life is. So I'm okay. I hope y'all are well.
We're very well.
We're doing great.
What have you been up to since, you know what, I should back up. Guys, if you want to learn Will and Audra's story, they have been making the rounds on the podcast, including mine. They were on like I said, they were on this one about 6 months ago. Check that out. We're going to skip the how'd you get into ball pythons, tell us the backstory. I need you all, if you don't know, I need you all to assume they've had incredible success with crested geckos. They have jumped head first, feet first, cannonballed into the pool of ball pythons, and have a bunch of other cool things going on. And that's where really I want to start the discussion. So last time you were on, I think it had been less than a year that you had bought your very first ball python. Tell us where you're at now with your collection. What do you got going on?
Yeah, you're correct. Now we are 115,
14 or 15.
There's 115 ball pythons now in our collection. Since speaking with you, we've actually acquired, I guess, 2 more collections that for people that were getting out.
I'm trying to figure out how to give you guys the FaceTime, and I
think you had to drag it or something. We tried
dragging it. I was clicking it. I was clicking the other there.
Yeah. So that's where we're at now.
Okay. So we've talked about, or I've talked about this collection purchase model before. Tell us about that. Tell us what you see in it, what your angle is. What are you after here?
So you want to look for the best bang for your buck. For us, if it's already working into the programs that we're pushing and chasing to create some incredible animals, then for the most part, depending on what it is, whatever comes along with it, we'll definitely take it. Just for an example, our last small clutch that we actually, small collection that we actually purchased, it included a blackhead trick, double head clown pied female. That was 400 grams. Now that female by itself has a dollar value on it. I'll just say we purchased the entire collection probably for what that one female was actually worth to us.
We ended up doing really good with that.
Really well. And it was a smaller collection. I believe it was 6 snakes, but the snakes that came with it, they're still kind of hanging around. We're not eager to kind of push or move them either, because they still fall into the program as well. We acquired new genes. We have a chocolate het clown male that we didn't have chocolate in our collection at all. So now we can play around with that if we choose to. We also have a pastel spot nose leopard, het clown, pos het laugh female that was a part of that collection that's literally 1,400 grams. And we're like, will we put her in our clown pride project or will we make her available? We're playing around with that ideal as well. So there's plenty of other snakes that came along with that, you know, we're in the air with, where we can legitimately more than get our money back if we made them available, but we're not really eager to post them up just yet.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this: how well or how little did you know that breeder? So let me just play devil's advocate for a minute. And you guys know, I don't think I bought an individual snake in a very long time. So I mean, I like the collection model myself as well. But how well did you know the breeder? And then what challenges or not challenges do you have with trusting the situation with the hets? So like, what kind of homework do you put in when it comes to collection buying, or none, or do you just wing it?
No, definitely don't just wing it, but we try our best to actually do as much research as possible. That's a whole video of itself.
It truthfully is, because there's a lot of, sometimes obviously in business and life in general, you kind of sometimes have to take those risks. We try to minimize those risks as small as possible, you know, by doing that research, by creating that legwork and asking around and getting references and things like that. I mean, that's part of it, but
so basically I'm gonna get right back to that, but just because this story is a little bit shorter and easier to tell, we dealt with Tennessee Balls, and this is a huge shout out to Tennessee Balls. Very young couple, but rather old fashioned way of doing the financials of their business, which is fine. Meaning they don't deal with pretty much anything electronic like PayPal or Venmo or anything. Couldn't get any of that going. And basically it was for 2 double visual girls. G-stripe hypo female, 2,000, I want to say 2,500 grams.
We were like, we'll just drive.
Right. And then it was ultra male pod female, that's 2,000 grams. You know, and the reason I bring them up is everyone needs to take heed to these lessons as far as with the direction we're going in society, period. We can't go backwards. We're going forward as far as social media, internet presence. That being said, you know, I researched them as well, and I went on their Instagram. That's all they had. I knew their names, because what ended up happening, they would only accept a wire transfer from the bank. Okay, so we agreed. And
which we've dealt with a lot of wire transfers internationally. That seems to be the best case scenario.
We do a lot of sales out of the country as far as with the geckos, so we're used to the process. But it threw us for a loop because
it's different. Sorry to cut you off. It's different when you're receiving it versus sending it.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And you're done. Sending it could be done and not yours, right?
Correct. So that's what leads us to building your reputation and your brand identification online. They did have an Instagram. They did post rather consistently. So again, this is a shout out to their good business. But that being said, you know, we were prior law enforcement, so I was able to get both the couple's names, and I'm sitting there doing searches on Facebook and taking screenshots for, you know, building my own whole file.
I still have them in my. I never delete anything, so his text messages, he's sending them to me as I was fine, you know, and we were looking at them each, and
so we kept communication to a minimum, and just addressed the business side of things. They didn't do a thing wrong. And we got down to the point where we sent them the funds and we're just waiting for the updates on tracking and everything. Well, the thing that kind of had us kind of curious about how it was going to turn out was when we went to their Instagram page. You know, they have some very beautiful animals, but they weren't showing off a G-stripe hypo. They weren't showing off a double visual, ultra male, pod, like in any of their photos. I'm like, if you have animals like this, like what we do, we're going to show them off. Like, it's kind of a little weird. So we make sure we're gathering all our information and doing our behind the scenes research. But luckily enough, they shipped, sent us tracking. We kept communication. They arrived. Everything was safe and sound. But again, behind the scenes, we were doing all the legwork trying to figure it out.
Yes.
But again, when they got here, those animals are double visuals. So you literally know what you're getting for the most part. You make sure that they're the gender that you purchased and you're pretty much good to go. Now, the original story, what we were talking about, the collection, we started, it's a little bit more research because this person actually purchased a gecko from us previously. But he's a ball python breeder that's looking to get out of ball pythons completely and get more into bearded dragons.
Bearded dragons, yes.
I guess he wants to kind of streamline his focus and own in on his passion.
Yeah.
So he was able to give me a lot of the details, I think all except for one where he purchased them on Morph Market and it had a history of where he purchased it from, who bred the animals or who produced the animals. So I had a track record that you can kind of go into that rabbit hole and research. So that really, really helped out tremendously.
You have to put the legwork in. I mean, it's non-negotiable. especially when you are dealing like we were talking about with hets, you know, when you can't see, or maybe you're not as experienced with visually seeing certain things. Like those are the things that you have to do to create, you know, good business steps.
Good business steps as well as customer service, because that kind of even owns in on what we do behind the scenes as well. Because when people contact us about animals that they purchase secondhand, not necessarily from us, we tell them all the time we can help them out because of our logging system. So the logistics side of us, when things hatch out or we make them available for sale, we have them with an ID number that's very specific to that animal. Therefore, when we sell that animal, that ID goes with that animal. And if it's sold or transferred 3-4 times, long as you have that ID and you email us or message us, say, hey, I got this. They said it came from you. This is the ID. Do you have the parents? Do you have it? Here's everything. We send everything over to them. So you kind of keep track of that.
It's like a pedigree of sorts. If you think about like the dog name or something like that. Yeah, it's extremely good record keeping. That is very important.
Absolutely.
Well, and that goes in with like things that are up my alley, from like a tax, inventory, cost of goods, and tracking and listing standpoint. Once I enter something into the spreadsheet, that's 2 different columns. It's a different column when it goes out. So I've got a listing of every animal that I've ever owned. And it's true, when I do sell an animal, especially on Morph Market, but really anywhere, but especially on Morph Market, the same number that I listed on Morph Market, which somebody can always go back and reference, they can always get in touch with me. So even if you were to buy an animal and the seller said, hey, I got this from Adam at Proper Royals, here was the original listing, you can get back in touch with me and say, hey, what was 122-3? Oh, I'm going to know exactly what that was. I can go check that out for you.
Absolutely. Well, you got to follow through with that, because we see that as an angle as well, where we can provide a certain amount of customer service to our customers that's above and beyond what everyone else is doing. Then you need to kind of own in on that and key in on it. For example, we see a lot of stuff, and, you know, not throwing names out there, but, you know, where to say, hey, this animal is available. There's no ID, no log number, but it comes from Canova or Audra. And it's like, it's fine because they're extremely reputable, you know, but like, other than saying it's from them, like, how do you know? You're not going to contact those high level breeders saying, hey, I got this, you know, it may have been sold 4 or 5 times, but is it from you? They're not going to know. So I question, like, how do you angle your marketing when you do that?
Well, it's funny you bring that up, especially with Justin and Canova. I have a male breeder that I don't need anymore. So he's a double codoms and a het pied, and now I have the visual pied. So I don't need the het male anymore, right? So I actually sold him this week, and I did tell the gentleman that I bought him from, or that bought him from me, hey, he's from Justin, and it was fun. He didn't question it, but it was funny because I was like, well, let me find the ad that I bought it. And you know what? Also, I'll include the handwritten thank you note from Justin with it. And it's like, okay, there's the pedigree. There's the help.
That's the difference maker. So if you just throw that out there, and again, we're talking about these breeders under great light, you know, but if you just throw that out there with a snake, even if it truly did, and you have nothing to support it, why even mention it?
Yeah.
You know,
it's really exactly. And it's almost like, wait a minute, are you trying too hard, kind of thing, you know?
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
You go. Definitely.
It's the difference between okay business, kind of like to a great business, great customer service, great follow through, great back end, all of these things that you don't necessarily see on a regular basis, like when you're out. You know, you see your face, you see your animals, but you don't see all the backside, all the back end work.
And I tell people a lot of times too, and I mean it when I say it. So I hope I always put it in a way that doesn't sound like cocky. But sometimes people will ask me like, well, is this really you, or is this or that? Like I'm somebody to worry about if it's really me anyway. but I say to them, and I say, look, I didn't spend 2 years building to this moment to rip you off of the value of one snake. It's literally, I don't care. There's literally not a snake that could be worthwhile for me to ruin my reputation over. And matter of fact, every day that number gets higher because I work harder and harder every day at what I'm doing. So, and I say that to people. I'm like, guys, if you want to know something, I'll tell you, and I'll be honest and I'll be transparent with you. But if you're just looking for ways to want to not like me, well, I can't help you with that, you know? You all brought up
not going to like you.
No, and it usually goes well from there. Like, you know, like, I'm not equating these people to bullies, but you know, like there's almost always like, I'm sure it was even this way, maybe in the law enforcement world. And so I hear about it in sports, or I know it in kitchens. Like, if you're the new person or somebody hasn't met you, it's almost like they want to test you and just see what you got. Absolutely. And once they see you got it, then you're cool. So like I say, it's not bullying. It's not that, but it's like, okay, he passed the test. Now I'll leave him alone. Now we're cool. Now we're you know, we're down or whatever. Yeah. So I feel like it's a little bit like that. Last week when I did my solo show, I talked about a topic that I love called unreasonable hospitality. And some of what you all are talking about from the customer service standpoint is that mentality. And I think, this is just me talking, I think it's so vital to do, but it's also such an easy way to differentiate yourself from what others are doing. And you said just a moment ago, you know, what can I be doing that other people aren't doing? And it's those little things. It's not the great big things. It's not, you know, starting a software company like Billy. It's a handwritten thank you note, or reaching out to somebody, or finding out, hey, you didn't buy your gecko from me, but I'll help you because it's one I produced, you know?
Right.
Well, it's the idea of you stand behind the way you are regularly, you know, the customization of your business, those small things, just following through with what you say you're going to do. That goes a long way in, you know, building those customer relationships and having other people, you know, send other people to you, and other people, and more and more and more.
Word of mouth goes a long way, and even down to paving your own road, getting yourself around a group of people that are like-minded, that's going in the same direction, being able to take criticism on your business plan or business structure, being able to give it, you know, if they're willing to receive it. Like, for example, if you're amongst friends, or, you know, if it's us and you, Adam, and we're talking about, you know, business, here it is, we're both, you know, business owners and trying to continue to level up, and we have a conversation and we're telling you, hey, yeah, you know, we're so tired of what they call tire kickers or window lookers, and, you know, this is just so annoying. I expect you to say, no, no, this isn't, that's business. You mean this is what you go through being a business owner, especially being online. You know, sometimes, hey, 10 out of 100 inquiries you close the deal on. Give me them odds every day. Like, if I'm just literally sitting here with my fingers answering messages and emails left and right, I'm complaining about that? No. So those friends need to kind of buck the system and don't necessarily agree with them, because no, it's not annoying.
No. And if you are networking with somebody, like, you know, we are in like-minded company, you need sometimes that person to kick you in the butt and say, stop doing that. Get back focused. Get back into our lane and complete the project, because without all that extra, any extra added negativity is just not, it's pointless. It's pointless to complain, because there's somebody else out there that is willing and able and happy to do the things that you are complaining about. So it's just like, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I think also, so I'll use this example, because I think sometimes, not always, because like you say, you might only close 10% of inquiries anyway. Right. But I think sometimes that stuff is self-fulfilling prophecy, to the negative or to the good. So like I see people ranting on Instagram, or thinking that they're putting up a funny meme about, oh, you want to have a video conference with this snake, and it's your first pet. Hell yes, I want to have a video conference. If you're willing to spend multi-hundreds of dollars on your first pet, I know I went from 0 to 27 of these things in about 90 days. Let's talk. Let me get you your first one, right? And so that's the difference between somebody else going, nah, this is going to be a headache. Well, you're going to have to tell them how to use, you're going to have to teach them how to use a thermostat. Oh, cry me a river, right? And granted, maybe I'll get so big one day that I can go, hey, you know what? There's a great breeder right down here that'll help you and has the time to devote to that. So I'm not knocking anybody on it, but I'm at the point where I see that as nothing but an opportunity. And I know I go back to the restaurant a lot. There's the to-go orders suck, man.
Yes.
Got to package them different. You got a bad signal on the phone. They leave and then they say it's not as good. And you're like, yeah, you just stuck French fries in a styrofoam box for 30 minutes. Of course, they're not very good when you get home. But I noticed none of my colleagues ever wanted to answer the phone. I still got tips on to-go orders. Oh, you don't want to answer the phone because it's a pain in your butt? Give me that phone. I'll take that. I'll take that order right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give us money.
Yeah, and once you hit a certain level, because we deal with that as well in the Crusty Gecko world. We're amongst those guys up there that's climbing that ladder, and at some point, we always get compliments. And we're surprised that you're answering our emails,
and we're like,
and working with us. That's what we're going to continue to do.
That's what our business is built on.
Right.
To a certain extent, like, I get that there are businesses that are so big and are so, that they've been around for so long and they're doing so much in volume and all that kind of stuff that they don't necessarily have that personalization or that personal touch. But at the end of the day, if you lose that, are you truly the business that you had in mind to be?
And they tell us all the time, where we'll go public or someone to see something take place. And they'll say, man, I'm so surprised you guys worked and gave us everything you had, for a $200, animal sale that you did in that, $10,000 plus sale that you did. Absolutely. It doesn't matter. The animal is still an animal. We're still going to give you the same customer service we're going to give everyone. We're going to give you the same customer service. We're going to give you the window lookers. The same thing every single time.
And you never know, that person spending $200, that $200 could be more to them than the guy with 10 grand. They might have worked harder for their 200 than the dude with the 10 grand did. And I've seen that many times. I get chills talking about it. I've seen it many times in my life where that person's committing far more of what they're able to than the person spending more. Now, granted, I get it. I'm going to pay a lot more bills with 10 grand than 200, but it doesn't mean I can't be grateful and gracious about their interest.
Absolutely. That's the grind.
Well, when you treat people with kindness and you treat people with respect,
right,
it goes a long way. It really does. Again, we've been in law enforcement, a decade pretty much. And as much negativity that is out there and as much as hardship and pain and suffering that is out there, there's no point in putting all that into your business, into something that you're trying to create positivity from. So if we can reach out to that person who's spending $200 and give everything that we've got to them, and we do it with the 10,000, then who knows, that person that just spent $200 with us is probably telling their 50 friends that we took as much time with them as we did with the person who spent 10,000, and now we have 50 more loyal supporters. Even if they never buy anything from us, they are supporting us from afar. And we prefer that over one.
Perfect segue. Look at what Kike just put. Like, Kike, man, Kike loves his normals, man. I mean, Kiko's talk about the bargain shopper, man. That he's after it. But how many people in a day does Kike both talk to, but also reach? And what a lot of people don't know, I know of at least one big social media account that Kike runs behind the scenes without even his own name. So for all that you see, Kike, he's even communicating through other people's social media too. So, when he says, hey, the way a person treats me, even if I'm just looking, leaves a good impression. they're going to remember him. But man, Kike's an amazing dude, man. Like, you never know who you're talking to and who could put out a good word for you. So, I think it's fantastic. Let's see. Old Man Pie says specifically hello to you all. I don't know if you know him.
Hey, what's going on? Yes.
Before we move on from this topic, I had one other thought, and I don't really get it, but I think it probably equates to kitchen sports, and I don't know if I've never been in the law enforcement world at all, so I don't know. But there's almost like this culture of strut where people mistake kindness for some sort of weakness.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
especially
it definitely goes to law enforcement.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I mean, but I see it even in podcast world. Like, it's almost like people are bragging about how tough they are, and I'm talking ball python podcasts. Like, what, you're gonna beat me up because you didn't want to talk about a snake? Like, cut it out. Like, who?
Right.
What kind of crazy? Like, we're not Ric Flair. We're not cutting promos on each other to go fake slap fight in the ring. Like, be kind. It's cool, So I don't know. But anyway, we don't have to stay on that. But it struck me when you were like, well, people choose not to do this, so they say that's incredible that you do that. But the flip side is there are players in our industry whose really kind of whole brand is I'm just fine, go ahead.
That's not being confident in who you are and in yourself and being insecure. I say this often, insecurities are super loud and confidence is oftentimes silent. You don't have to say you're confident if you're confident. You don't have to say that you're kind if you're kind. Right. You don't have to say you're tough if you're really tough.
Right.
The one other thought I had on it too is I do believe, to some extent, now I can't expect every person I can't expect every big operator to remember personally every transaction or every person. But I can tell you, there's guys like Steve Casino. Hell, Dale is a huge operator. He's looked out for me so kindly. Jeremy Bod. But Steve Casino, Steve's morphs is, I don't know. He's huge, man. I mean, those guys are at a level, I don't know who's bigger or not. Steve went so far out of his way. I mean, granted, it was 2 snakes, and I'll be transparent. It was $1,500. He went so far out of his way. The guy had surgery that morning, and he still was like, "Look, man, I'm probably going to be pretty high when you come by from medicine. Come to the house because you're in the area, and I live in Jacksonville. He's close to Tampa. I was 3 hours away." He's like, "Hey, I said you could pick them up today. Come to the house, man. Forgive me I can't welcome you in, but you come get your snakes." I was like, "You had surgery, man. I'll just ship them. Don't worry about it." He's like, "No, you're going to come here, pick them up the way you planned it." I was like, "Okay, cool." So it can be done no matter how big you are. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually 100% convinced of that.
And so for those people that don't know, talk about your scale of crested geckos. Like, what are you working with? How many geckos will you move in a year? Because that's kind of your sweet spot heading into ball pythons, right?
Honestly, we probably move upwards of probably over 700.
It's crazy.
Out the door, we produce about 1,000, a little over 1,000 every year. We're sitting at right over 2,500 right now. And it can be anywhere from a $200 crested gecko up to a $50,000 crested gecko. We're chasing the genes, and we preached about them being extremely similar, if not the same, to the genetic makeup of ball pythons. And we're pushing the threshold on some of our combos. We've got some triple recessives and everything else that's working on that. But that realm is such a niche, I guess is how you say it. Yeah. A niche market where it's very concentrated, it's very focused. Your customers tend to not really, you're one or the other. You either know exactly what you're looking for or you don't know at all.
Right. Fair enough. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Which runs us into the show scene. and our stance on that. We love the shows, love attending the shows. We're going to, vend a ton of shows, but you got to look at the trend. And even with the ball pythons, you got to look at the trend. Ozzy, Canova, they don't do very many shows. If anything, they're trying to get out of all shows. They want to be seen. They want the camaraderie. They want the meet and greet.
The networking.
But essentially, they're getting out of the shows. We don't want to necessarily get out of the shows, but we want to be there, literally not worrying, oh, we need to sell a snake. We need to sell a gecko. Don't worry about it. We can goose egg every show and be like, all right.
That's part of your budgeting too. Right. If you're able to understand that you have to go into the future, you have to step into the future, you have to utilize the tools that are absolutely ever present for you. And when I talk about that, I talk about the internet. The shows are awesome and it gets you in different places in front of people personally. Right. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to travel to multi different countries constantly and, be able to put yourself in front of many of the 8 billion people that we have on this planet. As small as our reptile community is, it could absolutely exponentially grow. And I see that happening. With that being said, only if the internet is the main driving force. So to be able to utilize that, you have to step into that future and you can't be afraid to do it. I think a lot of people, they don't understand, the internet. So they automatically become afraid of it. Anything that you don't understand, you fear. And so it's just stepping into the future, stepping into that and using that. For us, we utilize the shows and we put that actually into our marketing budget. Yep. So that way, if we do goose egg, it doesn't matter. We're there to put our faces out there and to network with different people and to form these relationships.
And then you got to question yourself, did you really goose egg? Maybe in the now, as far as cash value, you may have, but did you get content for social media? Did you get content for YouTube? You may be monetized a year from then, and then people will watch that content for years to come where you produce revenue off of that, which is another stream of income.
Did you create opportunities for business partnerships or networking or for future purposes?
That one show that, okay, you say in person, but leading up, or people that came to your table and said they'll contact you later, out of 10 people that took a card or got your contact information, if 2 came back and even bought, a couple of $100 of animals from you, does that still count toward that show? There's different ways that you can look at that from different perspectives, as well as networking, getting beyond yourself, outside of yourself. We network a lot, especially we deal with Bob. We spent, Thanksgiving with Bob from Bob's Balls.
If it hadn't been for a show, we wouldn't have met Bob.
We would have never met Bob. We were set up for our first show right next to Bob. And we only started doing shows probably now, a year and a half ago? We were literally 100% online. We do 95% of our sales now online. But networking with Bob, we became really good friends.
I think one of the things too, and I was talking about with Jeremy and Holly at Snakes for the Memories, we were vending next to each other in Orlando a couple of weeks ago. One of the other things, whether you go to a show, whether you vend or you just go to network, is getting in those reps, that muscle memory of what's my opening line? Okay, I want to talk to that person. How am I going to introduce myself without being like the annoying person?
Weird.
And I know everybody hears me talk about Dale a lot, but Dale let me vend with him twice. Now I was working for him. I was working his animals, not my own. But just I'm not naturally the guy, even with all of my restaurant sales experience, I'm not the guy that's naturally, what can I get you? What are you working on? How's it going today? And so you're practicing your lines constantly. And one of the things about doing it with somebody else is you really don't want to screw up because you can't drive away their customers. You want to drive away your own customers. That's on you. If you're worried about driving away somebody else's customers, you're not going to screw around, or you shouldn't anyhow. Right. You get kicked out of the booth. As nice as Dale is, if I was running his customers off, you'd tell me to get out right now, So all of those things. So going in person, and plus you just connect better. Like I see Jeremy and Holly on the internet before, meeting them in person all those little details that you go, they're interesting and they're very good people. But now I know even more. I saw them interact with their kids. I heard their, a little bit of their story of how they relocated and just amazing. And you go, this is so much better. Like, the internet's great because we're not going to reach 8 billion people any other way.
Right.
But that's just the icebreaker if we're lucky, and so I agree with getting out there.
Yeah, that as well as the kids.
Yeah, the kids. Like, well, we talked about, how shows are one of those places where, parents like to bring their kids because they've got to do something with them on a Saturday or something. Right. And they promised them that they would bring them somewhere and do something with them.
Topic. I want to hear it. Go on. I want to hear it. Go ahead.
But yeah, so that being said, like, when you have these children that are coming in, I mean, that's a whole new concept for some of them. And some of them, especially for me when I was young, I mean, I had a horrible experience with, we've talked about this before, a boa constrictor. So after that experience, I think I was like 6 or 7 years old, I didn't touch another reptile, didn't even consider them to be a part of my life. And then, he brought them to me and I became more and more understanding of what they were. But if you can contact these kids and you can show them the proper ways of dealing with things and actually them be in a safe environment to be able to learn and to love these animals, I mean, that is what creates our future for our industry. So it's important to be able to touch base with those children because you're not going to really talk to children on the internet like that. Especially not your small children, where it's pivotal to make those lasting impressions. But I mean, it's important.
It hits home because, like she said, the kids, the networking, there's a plethora of different lanes that need to be addressed as far as for shows. Shows are going to be concrete. We're always going to do shows. It is a stream of revenue, but you have to look within yourself and see what you're truly after. I think a lot of people, they battle, we always address it, hobby versus business. And since we're talking about, diversification, you need to look at your program and what you're working with, and what's your constant leveling up, which is that same Aussie method. Every year we want to be moving up. What are we going to either keep or expand, replace, more genes? What are we chasing? What's our programs we want to kind of fine tune? Because that's something else, being so close to Bob, and talking with Steve, that we were kind of being able to see it firsthand. It's like, hey, a lot of that stuff they hatch out, they've created such big names for themselves that it never hits the internet. It never hits anything. You got so many people waiting on those animals. Gone. Even, exporting, they don't talk a lot about all the sales that they do overseas. They do a lot of sales overseas. So, we tend to talk about it because we're seeing it firsthand and we're like, we're going to be doing that.
Yes, we're experiencing this as it's crazy because we're almost chronicling everything as it happens to us. For the majority of people, see, we are literally like, I guess, in this step above just because we've been there, done that, but we're everything that we're experiencing, we try to share. And because it feels like we're like the bridge to the gap. It's like for us, for geckos, for instance, you've got Altitude Exotics, which in the gecko world, pretty much everybody knows who Brian is at Altitude Exotics. And then you've got us who legitimately, that's our mentor for all intents and purposes. And so we looked at him, we looked at his business plans, we looked at his models, we looked at how he runs his facilities and things like that. And then we took whatever we could from there and put our own spin on it, put our flavor on it. And now we're kind of like talking to the other one. So the other different breeders that are getting involved. And that's the one thing that the shows has also allowed us to do is, like, for instance, we have a good couple that we talk to a lot, Blackburn Exotics, Zach and Kirsten. They're like on their journey of becoming crested gecko, doing crested geckos.
And they were in the ball pythons.
But they were in the ball python. So it's a give and take amongst all the breeders. You can always learn, whether you're at the top like Bob and Steve, and for purposes of geckos, altitude, you can learn from anyone, wherever they are.
Being able to identify the levels as well. So for instance, if we're sitting here pushing, you know, the geckos and seeing where we fall in that level, and looking at our mentor and what he's doing on a year-to-year basis, month-to-month, and we're like, wow, he's doing the same thing Ozzy and Canova is doing, and they're all at the top of the industry. You know, they weren't doing a ton of shows or anything. We're like, what are they doing different? Quality, higher dollar prices, higher dollar programs. And to make that really hit home, it's one thing to chase your favorite program, your favorite gene, but it hits different if it's hobby or a business. I can sit here and tell you, I love blue-eyed leucistic. I love them. You know, we have them, you know, but I love them. But I cannot say that, you know, my business is gonna, you know, pay a mortgage or pay off a mortgage or, you know, put food on the table if I'm so locked in. All I want to do is blue-eyed leucistics and a few other little genes on the side. And then I'm wondering why, when I'm at a show and need to sell it in person, because they're all over the internet, but at the show, they're all over the shows and they are being purchased. But what is setting you apart? You know, so if you have, you know, 5 different breeders and every single one of them have blue-eyed leucistic, it's kind of flip a coin. Who are they going to buy from? You know, if you have 5 good breeders with all the same stock, anybody may make that sell.
But if you've got that extra pizzazz of you went above and beyond and chose to, you know, invest in something that may have been a little risky or may have not necessarily been risky as far as across the board, but maybe it was a risk for you. It was a fear you had, but you went ahead and took that leap. You're putting yourself into position to run with, I guess, what you would call the big dogs. Like, you're putting yourself in that position. You're putting yourself out there. It's like we talk about it all the time. I hate being on camera. Like, I hate doing it. I've hated it from the very beginning. And he's like, you're going to have to get in front of those people. Like, you know, I hate hearing myself talk because I know I have this like super Southern accent, and like it's deep. And especially when I get excited or if I get mad, oh goodness. But that being said, like, it's like it comes way out. But
what about after a couple beverages, right? Now hang on. I gotta remember. I have to remember. Is it Rutherfordton or Forest City? From Forest City, right?
Forest City, yeah, Rutherford County, but Forest City. I'm from a little place called Bostic, Golden Valley area. My town was Sunshine.
In the foothills of the Carolinas, I've noticed, because I've spent a lot of time in these places. Matter of fact, I was born in one of those places. The smaller the town, the bigger the accent, right?
Yes, it seems that way. It's funny because when I get around more people who sound like that, it gets even worse. So like living with a city boy, like I've kind of like, where's my voice at? Like, where'd it go? But I say that because I hate listening to myself back on camera, but I like to critique myself as well. And he's always like, you need to be in front. You need to be out there. We need to get to know, you know, our viewers. This is something that's out of your comfort zone, but you need to take that risk and you need to do it. And I'll be honest with you, like it's gotten to where, okay, I'm cool now. I'm doing it. I'm good. You know, sometimes I get a little tongue tied, but it'll be all right.
That goes back to that. Just get the reps in. Like when people are like, well, I don't want to start my YouTube channel because I don't know how to do this and I'm not perfect. I'm like, you're never going to figure it out unless you do it and you put yourself out there. You can't, most things you can't fake. You can't learn stage presence and music in a bedroom. And then, you know, very few people look at all the people that have won all of these like contest shows. How many of them have become superstars? There's a handful, but not most of them, because they didn't do the reps. They didn't get that experience in. And maybe that's a little bit of me being jealous where I'm like, no, of course they didn't. They're nothing because they didn't do it right. Like, but the struggle builds you. And so being uncomfortable at a show, you're going to get value from it. Being uncomfortable in front of a camera, you're going to get value for it. And so, yeah, I agree. It'll come along. Let's take just a second here, since we got just a breather. I got to say thanks to a couple sponsors real quick. First and foremost, I want to say thanks to Sweet Serpents. That's Byron, Sweet Serpents Tampa. A good dude to work with and a really great breeder. Go check out his morph market. If you want to know how REDLINE, Cold Blooded Cafe, and then Byron have their logo there, I'll tell you, it comes down to being cool. Byron was really great to me. He's been great to work with. He's been on the show before. He's always welcomed me at his tables to check out what he's got going on breeding, or what he's got going on selling. And then his snakes are just cool on top of it. So what more could you ask for? Highly recommend checking out Byron's stock. Certainly a trustworthy breeder. Also, REDLINE shipping. I got to tell you guys, this past week was a horrible week of shipping. I experienced it firsthand. I had an animal stuck in Memphis for 5 nights. When I called REDLINE, God's honest truth, I did not say, I'm Adam and I'm a sponsor and you better figure this out for me. No, those guys were on the ground. They were on the ground for me, and they called the people on the ground in Greer, in Greenville, and in Memphis. Let me know where the animal was the whole time. Let me know when it arrived in Jacksonville. Unfortunately, they had some bad news for me because I said, I'll just go to the airport right now and pick them up. They said they're not going to let you it's not going to do you any good. You're just going to waste your time and be a crazy man. They called me immediately when I got the FedEx notification. They wanted to make sure I was on it. And then ultimately they called me to make sure to let me know that they had refunded the shipper's money because it didn't make the on-time guarantee that REDLINE shipping has with FedEx. So the shipper got all of his money back too. So that was all. I sent Robin an email this morning saying what a great experience, even in a horrible situation. But there's REDLINE shipping. Use the promo code PROPER5. Get yourself an extra $5 off of your next label. And then Cold Blooded Cafe, they've been fantastic to me. I aim to feed all of my animals frozen thawed. About 80 to 90% of my adults are on frozen thawed, and I only feed Cold Blooded Cafe. Go check them out. I've been in human food service preparation for 27 years. I know the technology and the standards that they're using, and you could tell the difference in the food for your snakes. Those are my words, not theirs. I was a customer before I ever got into business with them. So check them out. They've been awful good to me. Use the promo code CBC5 for an extra $5 off your next order from Cold Blooded Cafe. Tell them I sent you. They don't have a way to differentiate where customers are coming from. I want them to know that I'm working hard for them out here, huh? So let them know. All right, we paid our bills. We've taken care of the folks here. Let's get down to some like really specific content. So I want to talk about your Patreon program. It's always a hot button topic. Right. Everybody seems to have an opinion, including myself, on Patreon. I get a lot of encouragement to start on Patreon. Then I get a lot of discouragement. How are you going to differentiate yourself? Which is a great question.
You should definitely start on Patreon. This is the thing. We felt the same way you do, honestly. And you have to think and be creative on ways to circumvent that feeling. It's the future. So what did we think about when we started our Patreon? We thought about how hard it is for people to buy some of this, high dollar, snakes and, geckos for us at that. And I mean, when you're having geckos, $4,000, $5,000, $15,000, it's like, okay, you can have dreams and aspirations of owning that animal, but depending on your financial situation, it just might not work. That being said, we also wanted to look at other people that were doing it, like the Canovas and the always evolving pythons, and kind of similar to mutation creation to like Miguel with always evolving pythons. So I use these guys because we use them as the bar. Now mutation creation, Canova, I see these guys as, they're up there. They're pushing the industry. Now I do believe that at a certain point you've kind of paid your dues, and for you to give out specific information, whatever it may be for your content, there's a certain level of compensation that you may be rewarded for that, or that you can demand for that. If it's not general knowledge, if it's something that you do specifically and you want to release that information to some of your biggest followers, your biggest supporters, and they're going to compensate you with a monthly subscription, then so be it. That's your avenue. It's kind of speaking for itself if these guys are actually sold out in certain Patreons and have these followers where people are kind of watching them. Now, then you fall into the category where we are. We're like, hey, at that particular time, we were like 6 years in. There's people that's been doing this for 20 years in the Crested Geckos. It's like we've gathered a lot of information. We've done a lot of things on our own, but we don't feel that we're at that mark, even if others feel that we are. So how can we do Patreon and have that standpoint? Well, that's why we did it kind of similar to something we saw with Always Evolving Pythons with Miguel, who jumped in the deep end really deep when he got started as well.
He did.
Yeah, big time. So we structured it similar to that, where it was one tier. We did a business plan where we structured it that way for 1 year. And we would revisit it to reevaluate. Well, I'm
sorry to interrupt. Let me make two thoughts here. One good thing to remember: whatever business relationship two entities have, it's nobody else's business. If you're happy and they're happy in that relationship, screw anything else. Like, I'll be the first one to say that. Now, look at myself in the mirror, believing it's a little bit harder, but that's something that needs to be remembered.
That was our problem. That was our problem right there.
Well,
we had people that were, wanting to, be patrons or subscribers to our Patreon and to do the same thing like Mutation Creation and Canova. But like you said, us looking ourselves in the mirror, and we're not at that point for us to say, okay, yeah, this is fine. So we went a different route where we do charge $50 a month, but it was capped at $50. And now we've kind of opened the cap up to, I think, 25 more spots.
Yeah, so we have 75 spots now.
For a year or two. Yeah. And then we have another continued business plan for that already structured out.
Mm-hmm.
But for that first year, $50, what does that get you? It does get you some exclusive content pertaining to keeping, different sources,
some of our business knowledge,
the ups and downs of what we've been through specifically, as well as the monetary value of you're basically paying and getting all of your money back. So we rolled out with Flawless Crested Gecko savings accounts, where we have, for all 50 people that were there and maxed everything out for us, every single month, that $50, we eat the fees. And we put that into each person's savings account for them to use and utilize toward further purchases from us.
There are no blackout dates, no blackout animals, no stipulations. And we also, for our Patreon members, we also give them free shipping all year long.
Shipping all year round, whether you utilize your savings account or not.
Yes.
So you can make a purchase of something, of a new release that we put out, and you say, hey, I'm waiting for a different purchase to utilize my savings at the end of the year, but I want that. And now they'll get the benefit of purchasing that animal and still not paying shipping, no matter how many times you order from us a year.
And on top of that, we also felt, okay, what else can we do just to sweeten the deal even a little bit more? And so we were like, our geckos, we do hold ourselves to a certain standard with the value and the quality and the monetary value of the animal. So therefore, what can we do for those Patreon members who are dedicated to supporting us? We give them 5% off on top of whatever other sales that we're running at the time. This last Black Friday, we did. We said, ended up, it was 50% off all animals on the site. That was our sale. And then we were giving our Patreon members 5% on top of that. Plus they get, previews of all of our website releases 48 hours prior to actually being released to the general public. So these guys are getting so much value that the actual time frame that we've been in business are, at the time it was 6 years. Now we're rolling into our 7th year, but they're getting so much value past what our experience level is with actually keeping that it's worth it for them.
Right.
That's the value of our Patreon.
When we look at it for our side, when you want to see it as a breeder, as a business owner, what do you get for what you're putting out there? So for us, you got to think about it. If you're doing $50 a month and 50 people, you know, $2,500 a month is nothing to kind of blink an eye at, you know,
right.
And it's literally consistent. But we're so structured that legitimately we never even like withdrew it. But so it's just kind of just sitting there, you know, and basically what does that do? You got to kind of control yourself as it comes in, you know. We still haven't used it, so it's like you don't pull it out, but essentially it's like, okay, you can set it up to a point where you have everyone set up and don't spend your money on bills, don't spend your money on anything until that person makes a purchase from you, and then you know that it's closed,
and then you can pull your money from that.
There's a bunch of different ways to kind of justify it on your side, but basically you're telling your customer, hey, here's all these special deals for you, as well as once you're in the market and ready to go for your purchase, you just made it that much easier for them to purchase from you specifically. Because now when they're sitting there with $600 in a savings account with you and they want $1,000 animal, to me, it's common sense that they're not going to contact Joe Blow, spend $1,000 outright. They're going to contact you, spend $400, right, and get the animal that we're looking for. So it really benefits us, where it makes us feel confident in our system and the structure of what we put together to feel like, hey, we can look at ourselves in the mirror and feel like we're giving you a ton of content, a ton of presence, and trying to build you to the status of what you want to chase, as well as we have merchandise. So in our previous businesses,
hang on. Let me jump in. We got you covered like 9 topics here. I love it, but hang on. Let's pick some of this apart for a minute here. So from a selling standpoint, you're offering a whole lot of discounts, and that is a great value for the customers. Where do you balance that with making sure that you're not selling yourself short? Because that's a lot of effort to build that extra content. It's a lot of effort to track other people's money and savings. Is the mindset, hey, you put that effort into going shows, you'd put that effort into selling in other ways and in other places, so here it is in your own house sort of thing? Or is there other ways to look at it? How do you look at that and say,
the way we look at it is the cost of doing business. It's, for example, all right, perfect example, actually, Proper Royals. Getting started, getting going. I mean, I'm sure you didn't have, how many we got watching? 30, 40 people watching.
Oh, we're almost up to 50 now, yeah.
But you gave it 100% effort from the door, from the very beginning. So you don't throttle your response depending on your outcome. If we had no one watching, we still going to give you everything we have. And we look at everything we do. Every time you're going to see us online, it's going to be presentable. You're never going to get anything kind of half-cocked, in a sense. We want everything uniform. We want branding.
Well, we eat, breathe, bleed our brand. And if we're going to do anything, we're going to do it all in flawlessly. Right. And so that's the whole point. Like, you know, we've learned from our mistakes. Obviously, nothing is ever perfectly flawless. But as far as giving all of ourselves to this, because we don't just believe, I mean, we don't just have a business. We believe in the vision and the mission of the business. Right. So it's not necessarily that we are just, you know, trying to cross our T's and dot our I's and count every single penny that we're putting into something. Like, as far as our time spent, any time that we spend on our business, which is pretty much 100% of the time we live, I mean, we have a home together, we have family together. Right. Everything that we do is built around this flawless mission and vision. So it's literally like we're just putting into what it is that is our life. They just happen to be benefiting from that.
You also have to look at the return. So your return on your investment, all this time that you're investing now, maybe get you probably already seen this, but to kind of get you almost a pay it forward thing, but to see from a seller's perspective, it come back full circle. Here it is on this day and this time we're recording this episode. So do you think YouTube or anyone should throttle the return? If we finally get Proper Royals up there, 5,000 subs, 10,000 subs, you're gaining a return on videos you made from day one, 10 years prior, 8 years prior. They say, hey, we're going to cap this because
That's
you
exactly
only gave this amount of effort.
So it's a pay forward thing with that.
That speaks to me. And that, I mean, I always go back to my comfort zone of the restaurants. I would tell people tonight ain't about tonight. Tonight's about how well these people leave for the next time. How many neighbors do they bring back? Do they celebrate their next anniversary here? Do they bring their mother here for their birthday in the future? So, you're preaching to the choir on that, but I thought that was an amazing. I took a moment to write it down. Yeah, you're exactly right. Don't throttle your response depending on the audience. We've seen that analogy in sports teams. Oh, you only play up to the competition, and then you make one little mistake and you lose because you didn't come with your all every time. And I do believe that. And something, we could do a whole show on it too. Audra, you just brought up, when it's your own business, it's 24/7, man. Like if I have downtime, I'm finding new followers. I'm figuring out what content's going to be. Okay, I got a little extra time tonight. I'm going to go scrub a few more tubs that that are on the dish sink waiting back there. But it's that passion and that mission and that vision that drives it. And I know you all get it, so I don't say this to too many people, which is ironic because we have a whole audience and it's totally like public. And you could say no because this is absolutely neurotic. You're about to be like, man, Adam's crazy. Do you keep track of how long it's been since you clocked in for somebody else? Because
we actually were just talking about it.
I haven't clocked in for anybody else other than Adam Shira, man.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's important because, and that kind of bleeds off into the same concept of what you were talking about. So you look at some of the travel costs, travel time, expensive tables, and internet costs, your bills, and things of the sort as you're building your brand and building your platform and putting out your content. But you're never going to be able to find the bottom line. No one is, not if you're giving it your all. Because like you said, if you're answering your emails, are you gauging your time you spent there? No.
Right.
If you can never gauge. And then the things that you fail on, did you consider that into the things that you were successful on? You can't, it's impossible. So all you can do is give 1,000% all the way around the board.
You literally can't sweat the small stuff.
Well, and learning from what you failed on. If you just dwell on the failure, you're gonna miss out on what you could have learned. I learned a whole lot from that awful shipping situation this weekend. I regret that I had to learn it, but I learned a whole lot. And matter of fact, as recent as today, when I shipped out, my behavior changed because of what I learned this weekend. And I know now I'm even more confident I'm going to have an even happier customer on the back end of that.
Really quick. The problem with it though is some other people that will look at that, especially when you look at the market of shows, they'll look at that one bad experience and they say, all right, they're not necessarily closing doors or packing it in, but they're like, I'm done with shipping. If you're not picking up from a show, I'm just done with it.
And you
put yourself in a box.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. Mm-mm. Not at this level. Now, if you backtrack a little bit and you want to make just pet quality snakes, and there's nothing wrong with that, then you can do that. But you can't regress back that far.
Well, the problem is that those people who are dealing with that one bad experience don't think about the hundreds of other just normal, everyday, good experiences where it actually got to where it said it was going on at the right time, on the right day, in the perfect weather conditions and all those things. There's far more positives than there are negatives.
You're always going to consider the fear. And you're always going to have fear. You got to contribute that to some of your decisions. But when you get so, I guess, bullheaded and stubborn, when you're like, all right, I'm just done with shipping, I think it's a little overboard.
You boxed yourself
especially for, a business. Because if it's a true fear, then you'll be scared of going outside. You'll be scared of getting hit by a car, crossing the street. Like
that's right.
It is.
And rationally, we're all insane to get on an interstate. Just statistically, you're all in law enforcement. I know you've seen the horrible side.
That's what I was about to say. I was going to say that.
Insane to get on the interstate, but we do it and we don't think twice about it. But we hear about one bad situation, shipping or an airplane. Like, think of all the irrational fear of airplanes. It's one of the safest ways, the safest way to travel, I think, per capita. So, so let's switch gears and let's just dial down even further. When or why, and I'm going to actually go all the way back to the beginning. I think I used this expression earlier. I think, and I truly believe, whether it's in a kitchen, whether it's in any business, in snakes, and really it comes down to people interaction. But I believe we all have a secret weapon or a superpower that we can leverage to do something unique and different that nobody else can. And sometimes that's in the form of money. Sometimes that's in the form of circumstance. And sometimes that's just in the form of whatever we're blessed with when we pop out onto this earth and whatever manner that we do. But you all, to me, seem to have the secret weapon of optimism and drive, which is a wonderful combination. A great work ethic and optimism really can rarely be stopped. But to get really specific, what was the clicking moment where you were like, you know what? It's not just geckos. It's geckos, it's pythons, it's clothing, it's Patreon, it's YouTube. And then no matter how magical any of us are, there is a point where that would get too much. Like, you either got to hire managers, you got to hire, operators. So where do you balance that? Talk about that. Talk about what made that. I got to get all the questions in, because I know when I hit the switch on this, you guys are off to the races. So I got to get all the questions in. So talk about what made that, and then how do you balance it?
All right. So balancing it, or what created it all together, leaving the workforce all together.
Freedom, the pursuit of freedom,
right.
Honestly, outside of any system at all. Like, we just wanted freedom.
Right. And we actually, this is kind of like one of the rare times we really don't, I'm a all or nothing person.
Oh my gosh, go big or go home.
Go big or go home.
He's going big all the time.
Audra always, she hates it because I'm even like that with the kids, as far as their aspirations or their goals. Mm-hmm. We live in a world, and I hope I don't step on too many toes, but we live in this everyone gets a trophy world that I don't believe in. I think if you're an MVP, you deserve it, you earned it. And if you aspire to be an MVP, work harder. Yes. That's just the content of the way I think. That being said,
we're in complete agreement on this concept. So,
and then being, I'm actually a professional bodybuilder. No one cares, but that's a me thing. And the reason I say no one cares is I constantly tell that's the number one thing. Like, oh gosh, because it's like, hey, if you did this or you did this for yourself, or you want to give an explanation on why you couldn't do something, no one cares. Bottom line is, did you get it done? So getting out of the workforce and now actually having happiness. I mean, I literally worked for 4 years straight with no days off.
He is so much happier.
Days.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, your days off in law enforcement, I was working side jobs for 4 years. Yes. Holidays, birthdays, because guess what? That's how we had to make ends meet. Your shifts long, 10 hours, go to court, 12, 14 hours, passing each other, saying hi, bye, get a kiss on the cheek and keep moving, days on end. I mean, it's extremely stressful having your kids look at you like, hey, that was only, 2 hours of hanging out. You're leaving already.
And you've had no sleep for 3 days.
So we have a lot of things in law enforcement to say, hey, it's a respectable job, respectable career, but I don't ever want to go back to it, which makes us kind of walking this path and pushing ourselves to the end extremely easy. We will not be outworked, period. Yeah. So, and we're working at home. Now that we built a facility on our property, it's like, hey, I worked for 14 hours. I'm tired. Let me walk, 60 seconds up to the house and go to bed. So the stress of what other people, I guess, go through, we don't face those normal stress. We see the challenges and think of ways to kind of circumvent or overcome it and just keep putting our best foot forward.
I don't know. I oftentimes go back to this, something that a teacher told me back when I was in school. It's a very pivotal meeting. He said, if I ever walk through those doors and I feel like it's a job, it's just a job, and I'm at work, then I'll walk out and never come back. And that's the thing, like with this, is that we were working jobs and now we're building a life. And it's a whole different ballgame when you're tired and exhausted from working your own business, from putting into yourself, from bettering yourself, or, creating such a legacy for our children, and also for creating this ability to share it with other people, and working, chiming in, like you said, clocking in under somebody else. Like, it's just a whole different set of stress. Like, it's not even stress to me anymore. It's just like, hey, we need to hurry up and get this done because it's important, because this is our life. There is no plan B. It's only plan A at this point.
And unfortunately, in that field, in law enforcement, it's like you can go through bright-eyed, bushy-tailed and want to, do this, that, and the third. There comes a point where the system itself is not going in or completely in line with what you believe is the right thing. And there's nothing you can do about it, unfortunately.
It really, as he used to tell me, he's like, you have such a optimistic, positive, thought process. Everything with you is positive. He's like, I'm a realist. And I was like, no. But then I actually got into law enforcement with that idealistic nature, with that, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to fix some of this stuff that's wrong. And I was I hit that wall. I hit that wall pretty quickly. I saw the beast for what it is and realized that I unfortunately, I can't make those changes. So I have to make the change at home. And what that was doing was it was causing problems at home, making us miserable, making us agitated, making us see the deplorable areas of life. And it was causing us to make our home a battlefield as well. So if it starts at home is what I'm trying to say, is like, you have to create that type of vision, that type of mission.
And also, I'm sure you could probably relate being in the food industry, where you can't control other people. That's the bottom line. You can't control other people.
Or the team. You got huge teams, but then I got a dining room with 200 people. Let's give them a bunch of alcohol. What? Like, it's really a crazy thing. Hey, I wanted to say one thing, because first, I always try and come from a place of gratitude and then a place of reflection as well. For anybody listening that goes, oh, gee, it must be nice to talk about quitting your job. It must be nice to have your own home. And it must be nice to have tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of animals. I get it. I truly do. If you're unhappy or if you're chasing something bigger, I realize that you can't just step out. You can't just go, I'm walking away from my career because, Adam, Audra, and Will, they're gonna get me there to the promised land. Absolutely not. But what you can do is use that as motivation to start down a path in saying, okay, you know what? I got this thing over here, but I got this over here that I can start to make something. And everybody's got we all get different situations. I was never a single mom of 2 kids living in a car. I get it. I had a better situation than that. But I do truly believe most people could decide not to go to a bar and be working on something new that will bring them joy. Somebody could turn off Netflix for an hour a day and work on something. Most people. Now, again, there's some worlds that I will never truly understand. I'll try to, but I won't fully understand it. But that's what I would say to people. And then I would say set firm goals. And like you say, as harsh as it sounds, we don't always get participation trophies. Or if we do, they're not worth as much. So be honest with yourself. Did you meet goals or didn't you? And if you didn't, doesn't mean you failed. Why didn't you? And what do you need to change so that you can meet that goal, so you can get out of whatever the world you're stuck in? And then you can have your own YouTube show about ball pythons, or just start that and then figure it out and make that how you get your world,
I just love hearing you speak on that level, because you said it, you can use this as motivation, that we hope that you do. We hope that you take something and can get motivated. But the real test is motivation. Anybody can have motivation. Anybody can speak motivation into the air at one single point. but do you have what it takes as far as perseverance? Do you have discipline?
Right.
Is it something that you're going to remain consistent? That's what you need to keep in mind, that everybody sees the good. Everybody sees, yeah, that must be nice. But what they didn't see is how hard you work to get there.
So really quick, as far as discipline, you got to think about it as a small business owner. So if you go in, you're going from a job where, let's say every 2 weeks you get an X amount of dollars, whether you like it or not, you're getting that money like clockwork. Okay.
And usually whether you're good at it or not, for a while you get paid whether you're good or not. You just show up and get paid, right?
So it's a complete 180 when you're a small business owner. So you got to adapt that, adopt that mindset of, okay, you work for yourself. You need to worry about the bottom line and your cost of doing business. That being said, it may be, especially earlier stages, 2, 3, 4 months, however amount of time, don't have an income coming in. And once you finally break through from all these different streams that you're reaching out, you're increasing your reach, your audience, and 1 week you make $1,000, the next 2 weeks you make nothing, that fourth week you make $2,000. So essentially in a month's time you made $3,000, but 2 weeks in the middle you make nothing. That's all collective. So you do that over the course of a year, you may have over half the year where weekly you make nothing, but the other half of that year you've made so far much more that essentially you're doing even better than when you were working for that guarantee.
You've made more
check because you're doing all your checks and balances and your discipline.
I'll go out on a limb and tell this. This is really quick. When I was contemplating leaving the sheriff's office, it took me a long time. Like I had a lot of fear in it, but I promise you no, he didn't. But it was the best decision that I could have ever made for our business. When it was just like an eye opener. Okay. So there was a show, Fort Mill show was the very first show, and he had to do it by himself because I was working. I worked night shift. I was a street sheriff's deputy. And so I was working that weekend, and he calls me and he's like, you're just going to be shocked. Like it's amazing. Like he had made, I think, $2,500, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Let me break it down for you guys. I got paid every 2 weeks as a sheriff's deputy. Every 2 weeks, I got $756 every 2 weeks. Okay, so you take that, say you get 2 paychecks. Sometimes you might get 3, but say you get 2 paychecks of that a month. Now add that up. What is that?
Like 18 grand a year.
Yeah.
And
that's after taxes.
And that's after, that's after tax. That's what I brought home. But here I am. He made $2,500 in 1 weekend just by showing up and doing everything that we had in our mind, our mission, our vision, the way we bring ourselves, the way we present ourselves, our whole thought process. The flawless brand was happening then. And if I hadn't have taken that step, because he said, you're holding us back by keeping this job. So it was like in 1 weekend, he made more than I was making for the entire month. And I was working legitimately. I was working, I would say, anywhere from my regular 45 hours at that one job to 80 hours sometimes. It just depended on the week. It was an insane amount of work for meager amounts of money and dangerous at that. So it's super stressful. And he's sitting here talking to Bob Vu, making $2,500, and so just to put that in perspective,
Right. And you create also with the kids, we even talk with them frequently, and they're like, yeah, please don't ever go back to law enforcement.
Yes, no.
They enjoy having home cooked meals and being able to talk about their day and go parent teacher conferences and
sports events,
whatever it may be.
Yeah, I talk a lot about that with my family and with my son and my wife. I mean, that is my family, but I mean, it does come up, and I forget with the grind. Even as much as I'm grinding now, we were that was before the show. We said before the show.
Yeah.
And just for the record, I don't equate restaurants with the responsibilities that you had in law enforcement, but the time that we put in and the crazy hours that we worked, there's some analogy. We're not going to get into some match about who had it rougher. I'm not into that. But, you know, somebody asked me, man, Adam, how do you do it all? And I'm like, because I am not doing that. I got 70 hours a week or 60 hours a week back in my life. And look, I love food and beverage. I'm not one to stick with something I don't like. Like I did that for 27 years. Like I still miss it. I loved it. I made a note here earlier. Like, I think great entrepreneurs probably have an addictive personality because we will do something incessantly, sometimes to our own detriment, you know, but be that way. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the trait. That's what we do. Right. I mean, it's so funny at like a breeders conference, I'll say something about playing poker and like the whole room is like, where's the game? What are we doing? How are we doing? And I'm like, easy guys, I'm out. I don't gamble anymore. I'm done. I gamble on snake odds now, but yeah, but how do I do it? I got that time and it's like this new chase. It's this new cool thing I can figure out. It's this new cool, like, what's next? How do I grow it? How do I make, and I got 2 other businesses that I have to do. Cause I just put out a video about how much spoiler didn't make last year, you know? So it's still building and growing. But I see the path, I see the daylight on it. And unfortunately ball pythons take time. So that's just going to be part of it.
We're right there with you. Yeah. We're right there with you. We're buried. We're down close to 300K.
I didn't lose that much. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I wish you would stop.
But
like verbalizing
like it hurts.
that.
But the thing about it is we're not worried about it because the game plan has been stuck to. We're executing. You know, we building everything around our males and everything that we acquired. And I mean, the future is very, very bright.
It is very bright.
Let's pick that apart for 1 second, and I'm sure we could do a whole video on it. And you don't have to get uncomfortably specific. And Audra, I saw you're already a little uncomfortable with it. but let me make some assumptions. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong, and then talk or don't talk if you want. But on if I'm right or wrong, I would venture to bet the ledger might be down 300 grand, but the value and the net worth of assets that you have and future possibility. That's like saying you're down 300 grand, but building a 12 compartment, 6 duplexes that you're going to put renters in for the next 15 years. You're not dead. It's not in the bank account, but it's still an asset on your asset column that's going to make you money in the future.
Oh yeah, it's definitely
it's limitless, honestly.
Yeah, it really is. We came across, like I said, with some of them collections and even purchasing from certain buyers. It made such a tremendous deal for us on our leveling up, and we can't tell all the viewers enough information as far as putting yourself out there, posting consistent content, being relative to the market. Another really, really quick story, Delphi pythons in California, a very small base.
Vacaville, I think it is.
Yeah, Vacaville or something like that.
Vacaville,
So the thing about that, he deals with a lot of pied and desert ghosts. Every desert ghost is through the roof right now. And we're in the market, we have desert ghosts, but stepping up our male next year to hopefully a desert ghost pod male. Well, he was looking to get out of quite a few snakes from 2021, and we came across an incredible deal where we were able to legitimately get $15,000 in snakes, in 3 snakes for something like $9 grand. And when I say that project is so far along, we have like an 800 gram double visual desert ghost pod male, and 2 female 2021 females that are pod 100% het for desert ghosts that are both legitimately 1,300 grams now. So they're here. We're going to continue building on that. But when you start bringing in powerhouse males, we also have a double visual ultra male pod as well. But the reason we jump into those programs with those males is because not only do we have jam-packed codom and recessives growing up for the years to come, but it legitimately lets you jump in immediately for the years to come, like this year and next year, when you're able to go out and get simple combos like a pod female for $750. You know, you go grab a pod female and put her to either one. You're making what you can use from those females further, as well as you can make, you know, males and females out of that and produce an income off of that. And if they have a codom in there like Inchy or Fire or whatever with that simple, you know, recessive, it's just compounds everything for you. So you have to be strategic with your programs as far as when you're building that.
You can't be just so focused on this one thing. It's like we talk about it. It's funny because one of our good buddies, or one of his bromance buddies, Darren from Cali Mob in California, he's oftentimes talked about his project where he was so focused on wanting to make this thing, you know, from, you know, 2 hets or whatnot, that he failed to see the opportunity that he could have taken to jump into certain things a little bit quicker and create more income for his project. You have to have, I guess, so to speak, multiple irons in the fire at the same time, but you just have to pick and choose when to pull those at the same time.
And what she's speaking about, as far as the, you know, say you jump into something really, really new or very rare, a sunset and monsoon, and to get visuals on both of those, it's going to be a nice chunk of change. But say you want to go, and there aren't any out there, but right now available, but a double head sunset monsoon. And
you just put that together. You saw that? That was a new one.
And you get a male and female. And your intentions is to
Darren's in the
produce a double visual. Now, that first year of breeding those, you know, when they reach size, you don't produce anything out of it. You don't hit the odds, you know, the double visual. We're not saying don't stick with the program. All we're saying is if double hets in the earlier stages legitimately cost you, you know, $4,000 each, and now 2 years in, you're breeding those, trying to produce the actual double visuals while spending money on other snakes for your collection. Don't just say, hey, I have the ingredients, I'm going to make it. If you're already investing, maybe the one visual het the other is available now for half the price, for $2,000, where you can buy into it on the male side and sell one of the double hets and move it along. Now your odds of hitting that increases.
That's
you know, instead of you just pounding away at your double hets for the next 8 years, and you hit it in year 8. You hit it in year 8, and now in year 8, from that point, that double visual is now $4,000, the price of what you spent on your head.
It's kind of like, okay, sometimes you got to back up and punt instead of just sticking with the Hail Mary. Like you're
still chasing that program.
You have to figure out strategically how to,
as long as it fits in your finances.
Yeah, place your funds.
It does. And I did a video. I got like 400, I think it's 360 or 358, or maybe tonight it'll be 359, a number of video. I'm like, how did I have so much crap to talk about, man? But I did a video, I think I called it Hold Back or Buy Forward. Like, time is, we just don't get it back. And to your point, not only in the 8 years has the market dropped, 8 years is gone, man. Eight years in the stock market at 8% will double your holdings.
Right.
You ain't got time to screw. Like 8 years sounds like forever. You ain't got time to screw around for that. Like you got to be well positioned and paying attention to what's going on. So yeah, I struggle with that a lot, and I can't say that I nail it. A lot of people tell me both ends of the spectrum. Adam, you're not holding back enough. You got to sit tight on this. And other people are going, if you can buy it, why the heck would you make it? Buy it so that you can make something that you can't buy. And I'm like, that speaks more to me. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. And you nailed it just a moment ago. What's the resources? What money are they willing to put at that? You know, what other things you got going on in life? You got a child. What's that?
Tub space is key too. Making sure you have enough tub space, because you know, we have a ton of tub space, we got empty brand new racks and everything, but our goal needs to stay focused. Having a small boutique, you know, not having thousands of clutches, that's not our goal. Our goal is to get a certain amount of females, all multi-gene, high level, high end, and consistently graduate females over that and
move them up.
Yeah, because it's not to keep expanding as far as on the amount of snakes. We want the quality to increase. That's why we listen to Ozzy a lot. He puts dollar amounts as far as goals on his clutches, regardless of, hey, 4 babies, 6 babies, 9 babies. He wants these clutches to average out $5,000 a clutch. We would love, that's our goal. Have $5,000 clutches. $5,000 clutches, 20 clutches, $100,000.
But yeah, because you think about it, you're like, oh, $5,000, but you've got $300,000 in snakes, but you got $5,000 clutches. I mean, if you think about it, your investment is just like, I mean, it's just about to grow exponentially.
As long as you level up. And when you look at that, it breaks down like $800 and change a snake. But if you want to keep graduating up, guess what? Your holdbacks, you do have to grow up and add an extra gene or two every couple years or every year. That way you're moving with the industry. You don't become, or excuse us, but a dinosaur where it's like, hey, I have this investment and, you know, whatever it is, this year you made 100, next year you made 90, the year after that you made 60, and it's constantly leveling down because you haven't upgraded the thing. But you're wondering what's happening. You got to keep moving.
You're being left in the dust by those people who are willing to go it.
Well, and on that topic, one of the, every now and again, you just hear these like gold nuggets of wisdom that you're like, man, I wish I had known that. And it just echoes in my ear. I think Kai's still in the audience at Lucas Land and Royals. He was on the show one night and he said, Adam, any recessive female you buy, make sure she has a dominant gene in her. And I was like, at the time, I was like, Kai, I just spent the past 2 years buying visual females, man. Like, I don't need to hear this news right now. I was like, oh, man. But, and it probably seems second nature, but I guarantee there's somebody listening who's going to go, oh my gosh, I just about bought this. And I got, spend whatever the difference is to get, even if it's, I say just like, find a gene you love. I love Enchi. I would get a recessive plus Enchi for every female, because if you don't have that extra gene, you can only ever recreate what the male is at best. And the odds are that you're not going to produce very many of those. That's only if you hit the all gene animal. So, and then then even if you do hit a great animal, you got to wait 2 years if it's a female to breed it back versus having a female with an extra gene that you could breed back a male in a year and a half to, right? So like that just screams in my head like, oh, I could use that.
You also got to worry about the females not going for you.
Oh, big time.
You got to worry about that too.
I'll be interested in 2-3 years when we're sitting around holding court at the steakhouse in Daytona one night, and our Patreon groups are having dinner with us. I'll be interested to hear what your percentage of paired females that go or that don't go. Brandon's in the audience. He talks a lot about his ultrasound and how that increased his odds, and he's an ace with the ultrasound.
We invested into an ultrasound as well. We're starting to utilize it. There's a learning curve. So it's
big time.
Difficult for us, but we have it. We actually talked with Darren from Sloan Morris about him getting one. He's old school, wants to palpate. I want to know for sure. So it's a tool, it's an investment, it's a business expense. So we elected to go ahead and move forward with it. But it's exactly like you said. We have roughly 63 females that all bred and got multiple locks, and we have some clutches on the ground. We have some babies, and we're assuming or hoping that it'll hang around the 50 clutch mark for our first year, so we can kind of get a handle on things.
Well, that you'd be in the 80% neighborhood, and I'll tell you, I know I had one extenuating circumstance. I moved in the middle of breeding season. That's not going to do anything any good. But over the first 2 years, man, I think that my highest percentage was right around 60% of my females that went. And I'm confident those were breeding capable like those weren't like 1,100 gram females. I'm not talking about that crap. I wait till they're up to size. But I'll be interested to see. And of course, I wish you better than that. I wish everybody better than that. But I'm interested. This is my third season. So I need to figure that out. Hey, to jump back, Brandon, again, who I respect a lot, he says there's lots of power in male multicodom hets by straight recessive girls. Yeah, Brandon, you're right. I'm not dismissing having straight recessives. It was a thought or a concept that hadn't occurred to me. I just assumed, well, yeah, of course, some is better, but I can't just afford better all the time. So I'm not going to worry about it. The incremental difference it can make just with having, the opportunity that will come from just having one codom and a recessive girl is a monstrous difference. To me, it was just this aha moment I hadn't thought of. So yeah, I'm still in the club of ton of straight recessive girls.
We looked at that actually when we were working with Ozzy on a purchase, because that actually we deal a lot with Pi and obviously multi-recessive. But when we started looking around for those females that are, have a codon involved or multiple codons, we mostly dealt with a lot of clown and pods, whether it be inchy or fire or black pastel involved in those pods. And people were getting out of them, but they're extremely detrimental to our program. When you look at it like, okay, you're spending $1,000, $1,200, or oftentimes under $1,000 to get some of these females that are ready to breed, ready to grow, ready to go, and you're looking at, hey, I'm about to pair that to super inchy, orange dream, leopard, hypo, pod, 66% het ultra male. You're like, oh yeah, I'm about to have some fun here. So it's like we hit it on the opposite side of the investment on the male. Therefore, you can get some ready to go females that's literally sitting in tubs waiting for that male to get ready.
Yeah. And if on the flip side of, hey, it's probably worth just a little bit more to buy the one with the gene, you could buy a stacked codom het male for pennies on the dollar of what you would pay for that visual male. So the flip side too is, wait a minute, I think that was to Brandon's point, but also to what you just said, there's many, many avenues to it. So yeah, I'm not dismissing any of the others. And this is what's that dumb expression? Do as I say, not as I do. I've done the wrong thing. Like, I'm the guy that did the wrong thing. I got it. I'm not throwing stones here. Don't get me wrong.
Well, look, here's the Southern term that I use quite frequently. There are more than one way to skin a cat. So
yeah, that's just Southern.
Yeah.
So
I don't like to just make a habit of skinning cats, but it's a saying.
There's two expressions. There's that one, and then there's the one where people say they let the cat out of the bag, and I'm like, what kind of creepy world is this?
That means you just told the secret. You just told the secret. You just gave all the goods right there. You just let the cat totally out the bag.
That's right. We let it happen. Well, look, guys. Hey, where are y'all going to be vending next? Where can people see you next? Where can people catch up with you? Let us know.
Well, we should be at Tinley. We're actually speaking with Bob, who runs NARBC, along with Brian, and we're pestering them. We're trying to pay for our booths. We have 2 booths there, but
we hate to be that guy, but we're like annoying the crap out of him. I'm pretty sure Will's leaving like message after message.
Yeah, because we've done all their prerequisites. Their Schomburg. We've done all our other venues. So this was the one that we're supposed to be doing for March as well as October. So we should be at both of those, as well as Daytona. So we're definitely going to have, come down and have hopefully dinner with you.
I will
hang out in Daytona. A lot of people coming out to that show, so we're excited about it. And we haven't really booked anything else in between, but we're definitely gonna either be attending several shows as well as vending some as well. We want to get out and meet the people, get over to the West Coast as well. So we're working on that now for the super shows.
Very nice. I will. This is a whole other episode. You'll laugh. There's this is a completely true story. There's a wild mushroom called a morel that only produces about 3 weeks a year. And around your area up to the foothills of North Carolina, that's about the second week of April. And I just got this funny feeling that I'm going to be in your neighborhood the second week of April. And I got to come see you. I got to go see Robbie at Argent. I got to try and see Leviathan on the way in down there.
I can't wait.
But if I know me, I'm going to find, hopefully I'll find a business. Well, I know I'm going to write it off because if I come visit you guys, I'm damn sure writing off the mileage.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I still got a client in North Carolina that just might need a site visit that week. I'm not sure. We're going to see about that. But no, I plan to be up there. So hopefully I'll see you, mid-April. My calendar's over here. I'm looking at when I would be able to go. But hopefully in mid-April. But yeah, I absolutely look forward to hanging out in Daytona. And I think I only stayed one night last year. I think I'm going to stay 2 nights this year. I think I'm going to stay Friday and Saturday night, get into town Friday afternoon. Because there's a lot of people I'd love to hang out with. And you all are certainly, I would love to have that dinner with you all. And it's great. I mean, have you been to Daytona before or not?
No, this will be our first time.
Yeah.
You really, the airport, Daytona's a tiny little place, man. Like the airport's right there. You can't quite walk from the airport. Or you can walk from the airport to the speedway. So, I mean, it ain't far, to be honest with you. But you literally just need to catch an Uber to the hotel. And that Hilton is right across the street from the convention center. There's great restaurants right in the Hilton. It's huge. I bet there's 3 restaurants and 3 or 4 bars and outside dining patio. Like I rarely left. I mean, I just went to the hotel and to the show and back and forth, and that was it, man. So anyhow, I look forward to it. That would be a blast. Guys, in the audience, before I forget, down below is the links to Audra and Will's Flawless Exotic Creations pages, but they also have Flawless Exotic Crested Geckos.
Crested Geckos.
So fun, guys. Thank you all for hanging out tonight. I think we only scratched the surface of what we meant to get to, but we packed 2 hours in. We got to at some point, we just got to go save something for the next time, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. That's no problem. We'll be back.
Yeah. I know you will. And keep going. Like, God bless you, or whatever you're into, or whatever the good expression is, you know? I mean, like the spirit, the energy, the drive, the success. Enjoy it all, man. Enjoy every bit of it. And I know you do, but it invigorates me. I love it too.
Awesome.
Hey, great.
Well, stick around for just a second after we end here. Guys in the audience, we got Snakes for the Memories next week. And then Powerline Reptiles, another North Carolina breeder, I believe, on the 21st, 28th, KMB Reptiles. The 7th, Abe's Exotics will be on the show. And then the stray cat of the industry that still always comes back, Jeremy Bod will be on. That's a joke. I adore Jeremy. Jeremy Bod will be back on the show on March 14th. I got no gigs in February. I'm off until – no, that's a lie. I'll be in Punta Gorda at the Celtic Ray on February 26th, and I'll be at the Tampa Repticon hanging out. No responsibilities, just hanging out that day. For anybody that wants to come hang out, February 25th, I'll be at the Tampa Repticon. Audra, Will, thank you so much. I can't wait to do it again. Like I say, stick around for just a second in the green room.
Will do.
And everybody in the audience, I will see you all next time. Let's see if I can make this video work on cue. I always screw up the ending.